time to review another band that most people think that I hate. Remember that video whenever I discussed a lot of bands that people think that I hate, but I don't? Well, Godsmack I don't think was on that list. But some people tend to think that I hate them. Many of the requests that I had on this included a clause that said, I know you'll probably end up destroying it, but I want to hear your thoughts on the new Godsmack album, 1000 horsepower. Anyway, by the way, that is horsepower. That's not hit points or, huge penis. Imagine if it was huge penis. 1000 huge penis. Not sure what that really even means. But anyway, let's talk about it. Godsmack has made a career of themselves. It's really hard for me to believe that, I believe it was 16 to 18 years ago, I was listening to their first record. 16, I believe. I think it was 98 or 99. Whenever they first broke onto the scene. So they've been out at it for more than a decade, which means we're all getting older, which means that it's time for Godsmack fans and Godsmack enthusiasts to admit something. Godsmack is a heavy alternative band and a heavy rock band, a hard rock band. They're not a metal band. They're acknowledging that on this disc. They've been acknowledging that actually for quite some time. And their real awareness toward this is pretty obvious. I remember a long time ago, whenever Godsmack first made it huge, a lot of people thought it was great because they were listening to a metal band. Not that it really matters, but no, they were hard rock back then too. Godsmack is one of those artists similar to a Shinedown that, strangely enough, at my store is located in the metal section, which doesn't make any sense and shouldn't be, where they have some properties, but in reality they resemble more of a nice hard rock band from the 1970s with a more modern edge to it, and the only thing that's really modern about it is the fact that the production is better. It sounds louder, it sounds denser, it has a certain loudness or variety to it, and that's the whole reason why it gets cast into one system or the other, or people actually misbelieve what they're listening to. So this album, it's over 40 minutes in length, 10 tracks. It follows some simple Godsmack formulas, but at the same time also really showcases itself as being fairly well crafted. Now, if you're expecting another album like their breakthrough debut, either that or Awake, chances are that you may be a little disappointed, mainly because Godsmack, I just don't know, has really been in that same writing mode ever since. They've been doing so many things with their sound, and they've been exploring different avenues, doing covers of Led Zeppelin songs and this and that, in order for them to really expand their repertoire and mature as a band. And this is really another step in that maturity direction, because their last album, while it was halfway decent, it just really didn't follow through. They needed to write an album after that one that really followed through. Not just have one strong single, and then have the rest of it kind of middling, or in some cases completely meaningless. This album actually accomplishes that. The funny thing about it is that whenever you look at the cover, it's very direct, and in ways it's kind of cheesy and corny. You immediately know that 1000 horsepower is indeed for horsepower, and not huge penis, or hit points, or hot potato. This album, though, is encased with actually some really strong material for these guys, at least for this era of Godsmack. I really like the hooks. I do like the guitar work. I like the composition. And Solly's voice, for those who never believe that he was kind of, a little bit of a different miffing of a James Hetfield or, a classic singer such as that, this album is really going to prove it. There are some moments where it almost, incidentally sounds like he's doing a bit of an impersonation of James. And I'd almost like to see the reverse of that, and I'm not sure if it's happened or not, but I'd like to see James try to tackle a couple Godsmack songs, just to see how close it really is, to kind of, prove the point. But the initial single, whenever I first heard 1000 horsepower, I wasn't all of that impressed by it. I thought, oh crap, here we go again. And whenever I see the next track is just entitled FML, which there's a whole website for that, I immediately thought once again, shit. And that song, honestly, as a second track, meh. But then you get into Something Different, What's Next, and Generation Day, and wow. it really takes a turn. It actually really starts to balance itself out, and the whole entire body of work gets stronger. It's almost as though they expand themselves very, very slowly on this disc, where the first two tracks kind of goes through the motions, but then whenever you get to the meat and potatoes into the middle of the album, it really opens up. Generation Day is really one that really shines for me, and I knew that it was going to, just by the fact that it was over 6 minutes. Yeah, I'm getting to the point in this career where I can start to tell. But the second half of this album is kind of a mixed bag. Locked and Loaded is kind of meh. Living in the Gray is actually a really, really solid track. And then we get to I Don't Belong. Now, I know a lot of people, aside from just, knowing a lot of music. And I know a lot of people that are going to look at I Don't Belong, and all of a sudden, you're going to see the quotes on Facebook. It's just going to happen. Okay, just between you and me, we're tight-knit here. We're close. It's going to happen. Because it's one of those tracks with lyrics that just beg for it. For all of those people that you know in your life that like Godsmack and also feel like they're worthless or inhuman or this or that, or, they're going to make the change. One of those people that I've included in my 10 worst kinds of people list, where it was fake depressed people, yeah, you're going to see it from them. The song itself is not bad, but that's something that's going to hurt. Nothing Comes Easy and Turning the Stone are a great two-part finale. Nothing Comes Easy should actually be like the hashtag of the year, because maybe it would slap a couple of these motherfuckers down a peg or two that really feel like everything should come to them. It should really come as a real negative backlash to the entitlement nation that we really live in. Nothing is supposed to come easy. And the lyrics of this track definitely counteract those of the previous one, and I like that a lot. Also, I've noticed that throughout his career, Solly Erna just constantly seems to be in people's way, or people have constantly been in his way. Either Solly, I have some advice, 3 potential things that you could do. This is like a mini list, right in the middle of this review. 3 things that you can do to avoid this situation. 1, stop being in so many crowded rooms. 2, potentially do all of your activities outside, where being in somebody's way is only relative to the space that you have, and make sure you're in an open field. That way it's really hard to fucking do. Or 3, you're the one that's in the way. Get out of my way. There you go. It's actually kind of amusing. I actually like that little concept that continuously seems to come up in his lyricism and in his lyric writing. Some people may find that to be a bit bland. It may be overused. I agree that it is. But it's something that he's always able to kind of apply in a light that doesn't really miff you all of that much until you hear it in 2 to 3 straight songs. So, just something of a bit of a lyrical critique that is pretty meaningless. Turning the Stone actually reminds me a lot of Voodoo. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Voodoo, not in construction, although it does kind of have some similar property whenever it comes to being the last track on the album and being something a little bit different. But it still maintains itself as a very individualized track and really fits cohesively well on this album. So it's not like it's completely and totally out of left field for this band, as the original Voodoo kind of was. The first time you hear Voodoo, you are just floored by the fact that it's the same band that you're listening to, because it sounds like they just decided to, lead with a left hook, but then deliver a solid right. Turning the Stone, instead, is really able to kind of tease at that fact, but then maintain itself and give itself enough of a flavor to really give you a solid final track on overall a fairly solid experience. Aside from a couple of casual complaints and kind of this album kind of stumbling out of the gate, it's really not all of that bad. I have to give them a lot of credit. It's definitely something that I would listen to again and plan to, because it's one that, like I said, it's a band that I already enjoy in some regards and in some varieties, and this is an album that actually showcases their abilities, and I like the fact that that happened, because with their previous album, their last album, I don't feel that it did. I would give this album probably a 71 out of 100, which for some people may seem kind of low, especially those who are the Godsmack purists. But like I said, this album really stumbled out of the gate, and at times it can feel a little bit, has been and done before. So there's a certain level of parody on themselves that does occur on this disc. But overall, I have to give them a lot of credit. They were able to deliver a strong, solid hard rock record. And we kind of need some hard rock bands here in 2014. So let's have Godsmack set the charge. And stop calling them a metal band, for Christ's sake. What did you guys think about this disc? Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure the guy that just went past, my street out the window is probably packing about 1,000 huge penises. Okay, he's packing 1,000 horsepower. He doesn't have any penis if he has to do that.